Alright, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the Path of Rage and our weekly roundup of Star Citizen news from the past week. We've got a little bit to talk about, not as much as normal. There was no Star Citizen Live this week, but there was an Inside Star Citizen and a new Evocati build of the 323 branch that we have a fair bit to talk about with. So, with no further ado, let's get into it and discuss the happenings in Star Citizen. First up, we have got Inside Star Citizen, and this week was HUD revisions talking about the new HUD elements and the UI that players are going to see with 323 once it comes out in release. Now, the HUD comes from two different sources, the lens and the visor. The visor is your HUD projected onto the helmet that you are currently wearing, and the lens is basically, in lore, a contact lens that your character is wearing that also shows the HUD slightly different when you're not wearing a helmet. Players always need HUD elements in a first-person game, and showing things like health and status, what you're carrying, your weapons, and various notifications such as ones for missions or trading updates, comms, and more. You know, the type of thing that you'll see in any type of first-person shooter game. You need information to play the game. This information will be given to players through various widgets shown on the HUD that will show players any effects on the character, like lack of oxygen, extreme cold, or any of the other many hazards to be found in the verse. These widgets can also be hidden as needed, with the devs saying they can do this to ensure that the widgets aren't blocking the view, say when looking at kiosks or the Mobi-Glass, for example. These widgets can be completely phased out and not noticed or left up as CIG feels the need in that particular situation. When it comes to notifications that players will receive, main ones like mission notifications and whatnot, they will still appear at the center of the screen briefly, and low priority notifications will now be on the right side of the screen. These low priority notifications will turn off as new ones come in to prevent them from taking up a ton of screen space, making sure it all fits cleanly on the screen and isn't a distraction to the players, covering up your entire sight lines. They will show up on the bottom right of the screen now instead of in the middle, like it currently is for all notifications. And this makes me very happy, to be honest, because I find the constant text popping up in the middle of the screen to be very distracting, such as in the middle of a mission to clear out a bunker, suddenly you have a notification that there have been new trading price updates in the middle of your screen. Like, that's not relevant to the fact that you're clearing out a bunker at the moment. Having it over to the right and out of the way is something that I like a great deal better. This new lens visor combo will also now have the mini map in 323, which is a fantastic addition to Star Citizen. Make no mistake on this, people are going to seriously enjoy having this mini map and being able to find their way around a certain area much easier. Again, this is a huge update to Star Citizen. I can't wait for everyone else to get their hands on it. This new visor will allow CIG to style the HUD elements for different manufacturers and makes and so forth for their helmets, which will further allow for the various helmets in the game to feel different and unique, as opposed to them all looking the same, which they do right now. The HUD is the same across the board. An example of this will be with the dynamic crosshair only showing up in combat helmets. Now the loot UI here has been massively updated, and holy hell folks, this change is awesome. This is easily one of my favorite changes to the game so far, as it makes combat situations, and honestly just looting in general, much easier and quicker. Looting some ammo or med pens quickly in the heat of combat is now actually viable. I can tell you for a fact that this new loot UI is hands down better in every way to the current loot system. Walk up to a body, press F and up comes this new loot UI. Players can then drag and drop items in this screen, or simply click the desired items and they will automatically transfer to the appropriate slot in the player's inventory. There's now a separate section for armor as well, and players will be able to instantly equip the armor and items they find with a simple click. Doing so will equip everything that the enemy had to your character. So going into a bunker now with just a pistol and a flight suit, hoping to loot some weapons and armor instead of having to buy them again, is once again a very real thing. Hovering over a weapon in the loot screen will also show ammo or attachments that the enemy was carrying that will fit that weapon, making for quick and easy looting for specific items, and players will also be able to equip these attachments from within the loot screen. Again, making this looting experience so much more streamlined and quick. I can't really emphasize how big of a change this is overall to Star Citizen and combat situations in particular. When you're out of combat and you're just looting the bodies of say, the Nine Tails gang that you've taken out, you've got all the time in the world, no big deal. But while you're in combat and you say run out of med pens, you're low on health and you know there's a couple on that body over there, the ability that this new loot UI allows for you to quickly grab that med pen and get healed up again while the bullets are flying is absolutely a game changer. I cannot wait for everyone else to get their hands on this because it drastically improves Star Citizen. As a follow-up to one of my previous videos, I was also wrong when I said that the main inventory screen that we currently have was going away. It's not going away, it's going to remain, and players will mainly use it to focus on inventory management instead of quick use. It's more of an all-encompassing thing. You take your time in it. The loot UI, again, is for a more streamlined and quicker use focus. Finally, another thing coming that was shown in Inside Star Citizen was the new shopping experience that's coming with 3.2.3. Doing away with the old system of using the interaction system on an item, clicking the buy button, opening a new window to confirm and actually buy the item, and then going into your inventory. Now looking at these displayed items, we'll have a new UI element that drops the confirmation screen and puts up an overlay beside these items displaying information like the cost, what it is, how much money you have left, and the option to buy these items by simply holding down the B key. Doing so will transfer the item directly to your inventory, from which you can then equip it as usual. Buying things in bulk, however, you'll still want to use the kiosks, as you're not going to want to hold down the B key 10 times to grab the same item 10 times. I have been testing these features out in the latest 3.2.3 Evocati build that went on this past weekend, and I genuinely feel that players are going to really appreciate these changes when they get their hands on them, as they really do improve the overall feel and flow of the game. Star Citizen is starting to feel like a real game now, not just a highly buggy alpha. I mean, it still is a highly buggy alpha, don't get me wrong, but it's starting to feel like something more. And this latest 3.2.3 build that came out this past weekend has been really showing that off as we Evocati have been testing it. And speaking of the Evocati 3.2.3 build, this weekend CIG dropped a new build for Evocati only. Again, it is under NDA, so I can't show you anything from the footage. I can't show any video or whatnot, but we can discuss it and we'll look at the patch notes here. Again, this was a focus on stability with a lot of the new stuff in. Again, from the same as the last test, where, you know, EVA Tier 2, the new loot screen and visor lens, the combat refactor, etc. Things that were not ready for feedback were master modes, the new interaction system, freight elevators, distribution centers. Although they were in the game now, you could go to them and take a look at them and they wouldn't crash the servers anymore. I was not able to get a chance to do this. I was too busy testing out other things, especially the FPS updates. Reputation-based hostility was not ready. But in any case, overall, this 3.2.3 patch was very much an Evocati early patch. It's buggy as hell, but not as bad as the previous one. There's notable improvements, and CIG made on-the-fly hotfixes to the back end to prevent a lot of the server crashes that were happening. There was a lot of desync going on, but overall, it wasn't as bad. There were odd crashes that we did have. Roughly every 60 to 90 minutes, give or take, a server would crash and it would spin up again, sometimes very quickly, sometimes a little longer. Missions, when you went into the mobiGlas, had a weird bug where there was no text for them until you clicked repeatedly on the screen, which would bring the text up a few letters at a time. So you had to click repeatedly like the Energizer Bunny until you could read the whole text of what the actual mission wanted you to do. Other than that, missions worked or didn't depending on the server health. AI was AI doing its usual non-working thing. Again, the servers were not working at spec. Obviously, it's a stability test, and there's a lot of stuff added in. Another thing that was going on, I believe it was new babbage. People couldn't summon ships from the ASOP terminal. Just things like that. The various bugs that you're used to. Some new, some less. There was a bug where the tram at Lorville was actually quite a distance away from the deck, where the floor, so you had to jump to actually get off the tram. Things like that. But the master modes seemed to work well enough, with one exception. Putting down your landing gear would slow you down to no faster than 30 kilometers a second or something like that, no matter what you did. That was pointed out as a bug. It wasn't supposed to do that. CIG said it's going to be fixed. One cool thing about this new patch, however, was the addition of fauna. For the first time in Star Citizen, we now have creatures. We have the new Keopon. I don't know how to pronounce that properly. And the Marok. The Keopon is the cat-like, lizard-like looking thing. I'm going to have it on screen here. CIG put out a little Twitter video that we can all see these new creatures with. And the Marok is a bird-like creature. Now, they're non-aggressive. They'll fly away. They can be found in caves, savanna, snow desert, and they change colors according to the biome. Same with the Copions, but they will be hostile in packs, and they will attack with their claws and teeth. They do a fair bit of damage, so you can get overwhelmed. All in all, it's cool, and both of them have lootable materials that are the descriptions say that they have something to do with crafting. Now, we know the state of crafting in this game right now is absolutely non-existent. There are plenty of things we can pick up right now from the various plants and whatnot that say they're for a material for this or that. This is along the same lines, but it is cool to see that there is now creatures, the beginnings of creatures on planets in the game. The mobiGlas looks good. I like the way it's going. There is one problem that I have with it, in that the way it's designed right now makes it very fuzzy and hard to read. It has low contrast on the lettering and the widgets, with a drop back shadow to make it look a little more holographic. Again, it makes the whole thing look fuzzy and hard to read. This applies to the star map as well, which thankfully now is working a lot better than the previous test. I was able to make location routes and find where I'm supposed to go a lot easier than last time. There was more visibility to the star map. Overall, it is better. I do think that overall, with the mobi-glass, the star map, even a little bit with the HUD elements and the drop-down shadows, I think CIG needs to give it a bit more contrast, a little bit less on the drop shadows, just to make the game seem a little bit more readable. Right now, again, it's a bit fuzzy for my tastes. One thing I'm not certain of when it comes to the master modes, and again, they said that it is not ready for feedback, but of course, we're going to test it and get feedback. But one thing that I'm not too keen on just yet is when you go from SCM speeds to the nav mode, it's the same thing as it is right now when you spin up the quantum drive in the live environment. If you don't have a destination set in the star map, every single quantum jump point shows up on the outskirts of your HUD, even the ones that are behind you that you can't see, and it really clutters the screen. Especially considering the fact that with these changes to master modes and the nav mode being the default way to get around at speed for those longer distances, cluttering up the screen with all of those nav points, it's a bit much. I'm hoping that CIG implements it so that when you turn on nav mode, perhaps only the ones in front of your ship will show up. Not all of them, just to reduce on that clutter. Again, not ready for full feedback, so we'll have to see where it goes from there. The new physical shopping UI that I mentioned briefly in the Inside Star Citizen section of this video, I actually like a lot. Some people may not, simply because if you get close enough to any item, you're suddenly going to have this AR display popping up in front of you. From what I understand, you will be able to turn this off. This will be an option that players will be able to choose. But I find that you have to be fairly close to a displayed item for it to come on in the first place. And it will only do so for something you're looking directly at. So if a suit of armor is off on the left third of your screen, say, and you're not actively looking at it, you're not going to see this AR pop-up come up. I don't think it's distracting. I don't think it's bad. Some players may not like it. I have seen some comments to that effect. Again, we'll have to see how it goes. But from what I understand, CIG will allow us to turn that on or off as need be. And finally, server crash recovery on this new build seems to be working quite a bit better than the last time. That's why I say this build was better, even though it's most definitely a early Evocati build with all the bugs and problems you expect with that. The server recovery when a crash did happen was far and away better than the last time. Even the server crashes only happened a few times to me while testing out this patch over the weekend. They happened, but not every 5 minutes like the previous one, not even by a long shot. And when it did happen, at least the server that I was on, it was a fairly quick process. We got back in. Some of the minor bugs, like inventory might not be accessible right off the bat until you got in and out of your seat again or had to work around. But overall, less crashes happened with this build, server crashes, and when they did, again, the recovery was much smoother and much quicker and much more seamless than the last time. Overall, I think that this 323 build that we tested this past weekend was a great improvement. I think CIG is absolutely showing a great deal of progress now on Star Citizen, and I think it's really showing in these builds. I cannot wait for 323 to come out to the wider player base and for everyone to get their hands on it so they can see, holy cow, this is so much different to what's on the live environment right now. This is so much better and so much more enjoyable. Can't wait for you guys to try it. It's game changing. In any case, that is going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this summary. If you do enjoy these summaries or whatnot, as always, sound off in the comments below. I love to hear from you. Give me a thumbs up if you thought I did a good job. Subscribe if you're new or just haven't yet, but you still have been watching my videos, and help me grow the channel, beat that algorithm, and see where we can go from there. In the meantime, I've been RayJet Games, and I will see you in the verse.